In a medical emergency, we like to think that a call to 911 will result in an ambulance showing up. But in Ottawa, that is not always the case. The city is dealing with unprecedented rates of what's called level 0 ambulances. That's when none are available to respond to an emergency. Newly released figures show that in 2022, there were more than 1,800 level 0 occurrences. That's more than double the previous year. So joining us this morning is the president of the Ontario Paramedic Association, Daryl Wilton. Good to have you with us.
Thank you for having me on this morning.
In Ontario, we are at the tail end of a long weekend when emergency calls tend to spike, as we know. As far as these level 0 incidents go, what has been the situation the last couple of days in Ottawa?
Yeah, this has been an exceptionally busy weekend. I was actually in on night shifts all weekend and extraordinarily busy. The hospitals, the paramedics, and as you can imagine, even though we have the offload delays, we have teams of paramedics spread throughout the city operating under our new treat and release protocols for 2023. And we're doing our part to try to take the pressure off the hospitals. And what we keep seeing is the hospital staff are actually overwhelmed. There's not enough space for the patients in the hospitals. The nurses and the doctors are working extremely hard, and they're having a lot of trouble returning paramedics back to the community.
My understanding in speaking with paramedics out west, and you can let me know if it's the same situation you're dealing with, is that when the ambulance arrives at the hospital, they are not allowed to leave until that patient is admitted, taken into care by the hospital staff there. And that seems to be where the delay. Is that what's happening in Ottawa?
Yes, you are absolutely correct. So when the paramedics get to the hospital, they are supposed to have a turnover of 15 minutes where the patient gets triaged and released to hospital staff. What we've seen throughout the pandemic, and I know you've already covered it this morning with some of the increasing numbers, is that a lot of patients couldn't get to their family care. They had surgeries canceled. They had other procedures in hospitals canceled. And this months and months long buildup has resulted in sicker patients. So when paramedics are treating individuals in the community, we're getting far more complex cases. And when we get to the hospital, it does take longer for those handoffs. Also, these complex cases require specialized areas in the emergency departments. Some of these patients are going to some of the most high acuity areas, such as emergent care or resuscitation. And when the paramedics are attempting to hand off patients, that's going to take a long time, sometimes hours.
In 2022, we mentioned this, there were more than 74,000 minutes where an ambulance was unable to respond to an emergency call. And that translates into nearly 7 weeks. So where does that leave a client who's dialing 911 for help right now?
Yeah, for the paramedics, we know this situation has been absolutely drastic. If you just take that number, like you just said, it's 74,216, and you start dividing that down, we're looking at an offload delay. Just imagine that if it occurred consecutively, starting on New Year's Day, this could stretch out all the way until today at noon, February 20th. And that's how long it would last. So if you had a paramedic crew in offload delay, it would be for days on end. We're talking January 1st until February 20th at noon, where they would be unavailable to respond to calls in the community. It's absolutely astounding.
This is people's lives at risk.
It absolutely is. And it's putting the communities at risk. It's something that we haven't seen before. It's completely unprecedented. But the good news is that we have had success with a number of new teams in the community. If you're looking at our paramedic response units, they take a lot of pressure off the hospitals. We also have community paramedic teams, mental wellness response teams, palliative care teams. And interestingly enough, I was looking at an incident that occurred this past weekend where they retired Chris Neal's sweater at the Ottawa Sens game. And we also have paramedics working at hockey games trying to take pressures off the hospitals, because some of these hockey arenas are like small towns. And what ended up happening there is we had a patient go into supraventricular tachycardia, which is a potentially lethal arrhythmia. And the paramedics started their intravenous lines, and they started administering medication. It's called adenosine to reset the heart. And to make a long story short, they ended up having a successful treatment, and that person, under the watch of our medical eyes, could return to the hockey game under our new treat and release protocols, which takes the pressure right off the emergency department. And I thought it was just incredible that we would have an incident like this occur at a hockey game where, you know, people who were in the immediate vicinity could understand how important this was, and that this person got treatment that was otherwise historically only available in an emergency department. And it's like, this occurred in a bathroom at a Sens game. So the writing is on the wall at a hockey game, and we also need the writing to be on the wall at City Hall.
Daryl Wilton, it's important that we highlight just another example of where our system is strained and stretched. Thanks for coming on this morning.
Thank you so much for having me on, Anne-Marie.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked this, be sure to subscribe here, or you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.